My name's Anthony Spiteri, and I'm a Senior Global Technologist in the Product Strategy Group at Veeam Software, and it's great to be talking to you guys again. Firstly, what I want to do is talk a little bit more about what David showed before with regards to this slide and take a little bit of a different spin on it, right? When we look at it, David talked about the fact that, Veeam Backup and Replication is central to everything that we do. Obviously, we're expanding the platform. This is what I call our deconstructed platform slide. So think about a cheesecake that you can deconstruct and eat that way, or a hot dog, or whatever's going these days. We can basically deconstruct our platform and have our customers, our partners, but more importantly, from my perspective, our service providers, consume and produce services based on what you see on screen. So if they want to back up a Microsoft Exchange mailbox, they only have to download that component. If they want to protect workloads living in AWS or Google, as AZ is going to show later on, then they just have to basically install the marketplace image for that particular product. We're modular, and the modular has a lot of advantages, being software-driven, hardware agnostic, and the fact that we don't have to deploy this big, heavy appliance is a massive advantage. However, if our customers, our partners, and our service providers want to take bits of the platform holistically, they can leverage Veeam Backup and Replication to do a lot of the core monitoring. And what we're moving into more and more is leveraging Veeam Backup and Replication as a source of truth together with what I'm about to talk about, which is the Veeam Service Provider Console, which I talked about previous tech field days, and I'm just going to give you guys a bit of an update. The one thing I want to point out, though, is, Enrique, you asked, what have we updated? What have we changed specifically in 11A? For me, one of the things that we introduced with 11A was supportability for a new hypervisor. You can see at the bottom there, we introduced Red Hat virtualization support. So that's a pretty big one for us. That's actually got some significant traction in the market as well. Somewhat surprisingly, but probably not for some people as well. But just shows you that, we're basically looking to protect workloads no matter where they are. And our service providers to that end can build their own service-based revenues based on the platform to power their own service offerings. Our service providers are our as-a-service play. That just basically comes down to, you guys have seen a variation of this slide in the past. In fact, the last time that I talked to you, we probably were just releasing V5 of Veeam Service Provider Console. Not 6 months later, we've up to version 6, which is the one that I'm going to demo. But obviously, through the last, almost 12 years now, we've been very, very strong in our service provider support. The program that we have is top notch, and we mirror very closely with the success that VMware has had traditionally in the service provider space. So, we're very proud of the fact that we are very strong with our service providers, and it's only going to get better. In terms of our service provider console, now this is something that I've shown you guys, and I've recognized a lot of you guys in the room, and you were probably here last time I talked about this. But just to basically go over it, what this console does, it's free. And what we do is we offer it to our providers, and it is our managed backup portal for our providers to go and do multi-tenant stuff with our products and services. Now, it started fairly narrow in terms of its supportability when it first came out. In fact, it had a different name. In fact, it's gone through 2 name changes before we've settled on this one at the moment, but nothing is ever final at Veeam. So, that might change. However, we started with it doing basic agent management. Effectively, VCSPs can come into our service providers. It's multi-tenant. They could allocate a reseller. The reseller can allocate a tenant, and they can all get different views into certain jobs and workloads that are being protected. Now, as we've evolved the product, we've taken it, we've expanded it. We're supporting more products. And then version 6, we've extended that to our Veeam Backup for Office 365. We've added massive support for licensing. It's a bit of an interesting one. I was kind of not sold. I hate licensing. I'm sure like everyone of us here who's watching this, who's dealt with licensing, absolutely hates to do anything with licensing. It's actually written into my contract that I don't, but that's another story. However, what we did is we spent a ton of time trying to make licensing easy for our providers, really listen to what they wanted. And we've basically achieved that in a couple of different ways in this particular version 6 of Service Provider Console. That matches up with a Salesforce-based application that we've written for license management. In the demo, I'll basically show you guys what that actually looks like. APIs are also something that really we're trying hard to kind of break from where we were probably 2 or 3 years ago, which was having a bit of technical debt in our API set because of where we came from. If you didn't start developing on a product in the last 3 to 5 years and you started earlier, retrofitting modern APIs onto that was difficult. So it's actually been really a great journey for us to basically, with our new products that we've got going, the cloud products that AZ is going to show, Veeam Backup for Office 365, the Service Provider Console is really driving our modern APIs and making it better in Veeam Backup and Replication as well. So it's very, very important that we continue to enhance our APIs across the board. Again, what's new? I've kind of talked about this, so I won't go through this in any great detail. It's more in the demo. I just wanted to spend a little bit of time going through the architecture, which, to a certain, it's a high-level architecture, obviously, but effectively what Service Provider Console does is it leverages Veeam Cloud Connect. Now, Cloud Connect is a technology that we released in version 8 of our product, which was used for Cloud Connect Backup to basically allow our customers to back up from on-premises locations to our cloud providers. Now, what we've done with the Cloud Connect technology itself, which is that tunneling technology, is we use it for a lot of our core functionality now to do anything from an on-premises location or remote location to a cloud location. And it's actually one of our strongest underlying products or technologies that we continue to build functionality on. In fact, what you're going to see me demo really in terms of license management and some of the other cool stuff in version 6 of console can only happen because of that Cloud Connect technology. In a nutshell, what providers will do is they'll install Veeam Service Provider Console in their cloud platform. They will have a cloud gateway. The cloud gateway is the front end for the Cloud Connect technology. Behind that, they will have their Veeam Backup and Replication infrastructure. They might have Veeam Backup for Office 365 as well. There's a number of different things they can have. Veeam One, our monitoring software. And that all handles the backup, the repositories for the tenants and for their resellers. Now, what you can see here that's new in version 6 is that we've got this Pulse plugin here. That's that Salesforce plugin or application that we've written over the past 12 months, which effectively handles licensing, okay? It allows for the reporting and cutting of licenses for our resellers and our partners. And what Console does through the plugin library in Console, it talks to that Pulse application and actually allows our providers to cut licenses directly from Console. And then not only that, also be able to install licenses remotely to their fleet of Veeam Backup and Replication servers or Veeam Ones or Veeam Backup for Office 365 as well. And I'll show that in the demo.
I have a question, sorry.
Yes, Enrico.
Do you have, among your partners, MSPs that are deploying, the service provider side on a cloud provider, tier 1 cloud provider like Google or AWS or Azure or I don't know.
Sometimes, yes, sometimes.
Yeah, and do you have a best practice for it? Is it something that makes sense for these customers, or is it just a niche?
If providers haven't got the capital, they don't want any capex. If they want to go and leverage, an operational model like the cloud, it's handy. We certainly have a few providers that have started their lives in, say, AWS, and you can deploy all this on AWS, yes. And then you can leverage, the storage on AWS, and then you can expand that to take advantage of our scale-up backup repository, which leverages S3 to make things cheaper. So short answer is yes, but what we find is that as those guys grow up, as they get more serious in terms of MSPs, they'll start to look to basically have their own hardware because it becomes more cost effective at a certain breakpoint, right? So yeah, that's how I'd answer that.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Cool. Okay, so just wanted to highlight again that it is free, and I'm going to show the demo, so we'll get more of an explanation of the demo. Now what I want to just quickly go to as well before I go to the demo, I wanted the demo to flow in one and kind of leads onto each other, is pivot a little bit to our Backup for Microsoft Office 365 product. This has been a tremendously successful product for us. We kind of talk about this as being Veeam's highest, it's our strongest growth product by way of revenue percentage. So not dollar cents in terms of what VBR was, but obviously from a percentage wise, it's been huge. We tapped the market at the right time, we feel, and we helped educate the market as well to understand that you do need to, think about backing up your Office 365 data. So, the proof of that, and that was obviously something that a lot of people had, problems with in terms of, coming to terms with what that actually meant, understanding what Microsoft tells you. And I guess we've had some discussions on this before. I know Michael presented on this a couple of cloud field days before, but you can see that the numbers don't lie. There's tons of users out there. The daily active users for Teams alone is 450 million from last count. We're able to trap a significant portion of that market already, and it's really helped this product grow and grow strongly. So, the reasons why we say that you need to back up your Office 365 data, there's 7 of them listed here. I'm not going to go through them all together. I'm kind of preaching the converted, but, the fact is that the cloud in general, we all know, will not back up your data and not responsible for your data. There's that shared responsibility model, which we talk about for a lot of different cloud providers these days. It's no different for Office 365. Retention only goes so far. Archival only goes so far. So, this has been a really strong product for us. It continues to grow. The one area that we kind of lacked a little bit of polish with was with regards to the self-service capability. We had been, the ask for a number of years now since release of product was we needed our customers to be able to perform self-service restoration from the backups that they're taking with the portal. Service providers specifically have been yelling out for this. We've had a few community-driven portals, which actually I showed in the last Cloud Field Day as well, with regards to one that was created by Niels England, who now works in PM. But what we needed to do is we needed to come out with something official. We needed a portal that was part of the product, and that's coming as part of version 6. So the self-service restore portal, it's inbuilt. It basically leverages modern authentication within Azure to handle authentication out. So the organizations that we're backing up, we're leveraging the inbuilt authentication that is part of an Office 365 tenancy to actually handle the ability for users to go in and restore their own data. We're also doing things like adding operational role-based access control as well. So it's not only the one user that can go one-to-one and restore their data, but obviously if you've got a help desk or some sort of operational guy, they can come in and do restores administratively as well. So there's 2 types of configurations like I talked about. This is the basic way and how they work. Self-service for users and self-service for restore operators. If it's self-service for users, the user effectively has individual access to restore their own items, pretty straightforward. And in terms of the restore operator, they can effectively just restore on behalf of one or many users or organizations or groups, okay? So it's a very strong offering to start with. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to demo that last. So if there's no other questions on backup for Office 365 or whatever, I'll just go straight into the demo. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to start in Service Provider Console. And what I want to do start is basically log in via our new SSO capability. So again, listening to our customers, having the ability to leverage an external authentication provider is something that you need in this day and age. So in this example here, I'm logging into Okta, and that's going to basically do an authentication through Okta and then hand it back to the Veeam Service Provider Console and log in with that. So obviously, we're reducing overheads there. Again, this is pretty standard these days, but it's something that we hadn't built into the product just yet. So it's something that was important to actually get in there. For those that aren't really familiar with the with the Veeam Service Provider Console, again, when someone logs in, I'm logged in here as a top-level VCSP. We get an overview of what's happening within our resellers and tenancy. We get to see our revenue, what machines we're protecting, what workloads we're protecting. We can drill down here and actually go into our managed customers. We can drill into resellers. And then we can actually go and do things like see what's actually happening specifically for this particular customer if we wanted to. So in terms of the granularity there, that's pretty important. And that's also how we work with multi-tenancy. So if I was to log in as a reseller, I would only see exactly what is relative to here. You can see I've got a couple of resellers here, and they would log in and only see those particular customers or tenants there. If I was a tenant, I could log in at that particular view and get a more restricted view of what I could see. So it's very handy from that point of view. In terms of what we've built into the V's version 6, talking about that plugin that I talked about with the licensing, we've got this extensibility set of plugins now. We've got that Pulse integration, which I talked about, which is that Salesforce application. What we can do once we actually connect to that portal is we can come in here and basically map companies both ways. So the APIs are talking to each other. And then once we've mapped a company, we can then go into a license keys here, and we can actually cut a new license key directly from the portal. So here you can see I can cut a license key for any of these products here. This can all be done via the API, by the way, as well, so not just the UI. If I wanted to basically cut some license keys for Veeam Backup for Office 365, I'd set an expiration date, I'd do some other stuff there, click on next. We then would add the workloads. The workload in this case is to user. Obviously, if it's a Veeam Backup for Replication, we've got a number of different options here in terms of the workloads. If I wanted to put 100 users in there. So what I'm doing here is effectively cutting a specific license for a specific customer. It's then going off to Pulse. Pulse is generating that license, keeping track of it. And then here, what I can then do is I can assign it to a particular customer. And in fact, I've got the ability to assign, revoke, whatever. So this just saves a ton of time from the point of view of being able to cut individual licenses, because before it wasn't obviously this smooth. So I'm going to go here and assign it to this particular customer. And then it's going to go and basically make the two systems talk to each other, sync it up, and then that will be assigned there. What I can then do from here is if I go back to the licensing tab in the configuration backend, it's important for our VCSPs to be able to see, what they're consuming, what they're using. This all goes back to the aggregators as well. So this is obviously reducing the overheads for our Veeam Cloud and Service Providers. We've got the usage reporting here. From a Veeam Backup and Replication point of view, you can effectively see the number of units that you've got. You can see your used points, the support ID.
So Anthony, so you're showing backup and replication. One thing that I'm seeing a lot, between the some of the delegates here, and then I hear a lot as well, is how can you do effectively a VBR-less backup solution for the agents? So either workstations or for cloud instances, database servers, et cetera. Does this provide that kind of capability?
Yeah, so you can obviously, with the agent point of view here, you don't necessarily need to have Veeam Backup and Replication anywhere if the agents are connected through remotely. So short answer is yes, Jim, and you can basically go and, revoke licenses from here. I think obviously in that case, it's going to be fairly rare that you've got customers that maybe don't have that, but Cloud Connect, again, can tap into that remote site and then obviously look at the agents, talk to the agents, and you can then manage agents from that perspective as well.
Okay.
Cool. I'll just continue from a time perspective. What I was going to show was basically the last step of that way is to basically go and say, okay, how do we then license this particular instance of Veeam Backup for Office 365 with that plugin, the Pulse integration? So what we can then do is we can click on that particular instance and we can install from a local folder. So if you've got the license file sitting locally, or we can install from VCSP Pulse. And if I had the right company there, which I haven't got this one assigned particularly to that company, you would have basically seen that license pop up here, and I would have been able to remotely push the license from the console to that Veeam Backup for Office 365 server and then have it licensed. Okay, so the big part here is thinking about how the advantages would work if you're an MSP managing hundreds of instances of the agents of Veeam Backup Replication, Veeam One, or Veeam Backup for Office 365 for your customers. You can now go in here and basically do a bunch of remote installations for the license. That's something that we're just trying to work on specifically to reduce overhead, right? So again, this might seem like not a very fancy, not a very sexy sort of feature, but believe me, it's something that service providers want to get right in terms of their license manager. The last thing that I'll show in VBO v6, just by way of something that, that was pretty cool and a good example of what we're doing with the Cloud Connect technology. If I go to backup servers now, we've got this ability to do a remote PowerShell session. So if I click on that particular server there and go on PowerShell, what we're doing now is we're going to effectively, through Cloud Connect, go into this server remotely through the tunnel securely and launch a PowerShell session through that Cloud Connect tunnel. Again, this is really, if I get that right, there we go. This is really just initiating this remote PowerShell. And now what an operator can do, a backup admin can come in here and do stuff on this server more directly, right? So we're just adding these little bits and pieces to make this particular portal a lot more usable and a lot more attractive for our providers to create services off. And this is only the start of it as well. I can't talk about what's coming in version 7 just yet. Hopefully by the next Cloud Field Day, I'll be able to talk about that. But we're stepping it up a hell of a notch in version 7 in terms of adding more functionality around Veeam Backup Replication, the public clouds, reporting, patching, and whatnot. So this is really becoming central for our providers. All right, so Veeam Backup for Office 365, very, very quickly. So actually, as of yesterday, the beta for version 6 of Veeam Backup for it's Microsoft 365 now, that's been released. So for those listening out there or those that listen to this afterwards, hit up your local SE or SA or your account manager because there is a beta available. So this is what I'm running at the moment. It's a beta. Effectively, what we've done in the beta, the big thing that I'm going to show is a self-service portal. You can see here that I'm backing up my own organization here. It's not a very busy instance. But what I can then do through the general options, we've now got the ability to, obviously we've got the REST API, which we've had previously, but we've now got the ability to enable this restore portal. And this restore portal is basically done by creating an application within Microsoft Azure. That application then ties the two systems together, and then we can do authentication through the certificate exchanges, through the single sign-on and the modern authentication within Azure to actually facilitate, who can actually do what on the portal. So there's a couple of steps to set it up. We've got the help and support documents up to date for this releases. It's semi-straightforward, but it does need a little bit of understanding of what it is to set up modern authentication in Azure. But those of you who are familiar with that should get that pretty well. So you can see here at the moment that if I was to do a traditional restore from here, I could basically, go to the last restore point or look at a bunch of restore points based on the backup jobs that I've taken here. But there was no way for self-service users individually come in and restore their own items if they wanted to.
So I'm just relaying a question I received from Tourisphere about API support for service providers. What are the plans? What's the future hold there? Could you elaborate a little bit on that?
For VBO?
For API support for MSPs.
Yes, so everything that we do now is effectively an API. So actually what you'll see here, I was going to go to this last, but I might as well go to it now. So this is a new Swagger interface for the version v6. Obviously, we've gone through a number of iterations of the API for Veeam Backup for Microsoft Office 365. And every iteration that we release, we add more functionality for our providers. And in fact, our providers have already built examples of restore portals based on the APIs that we've got. So that, again, our API journey is continuing. We continue to improve them. But in version 6, what I'm about to show you with the restore portal itself, our smart providers that can actually have capability in-house to develop against specific APIs, they might not actually use the portal, right? They'll actually use their own innovation, their own API interfaces to create a portal based on what you see here. There's a bunch of restore point, restore sessions, restore session events, self-service portal. So all the methods are being built in and added as we iterate on the product.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's go in and do something very quickly here. So actually, let me just go here actually, because what I want to do, I want to quickly touch on operator roles. So the operator roles here is basically what dictates that, that operator level access to actually see different tenancies, right? So this is fully multi-tenant capable. Obviously, I've only got one organization here, but if I wanted to go in and basically create a user to, well, select a group, which obviously has a bunch of operational users, I would basically click on Restore Operators here. I'd add that. I would then say to this, what do they want to actually manage, the entire organization or a subset of organizations? So if I wanted to add particular users that this particular group could manage for the restore capabilities, I would add it here, right? So it's pretty straightforward in terms of rollback, but that's what we wanted to make sure that it actually worked. Now, the key thing here is providers will get really, really smart in being able to leverage permissions within Azure to basically cross over organizations and have certain hierarchical administrative users go to a number of different tenants. Okay, with that, let's take a quick look at this. So I'm going to log in first as an organizational admin. So let's go here and do the login first. And this will take me to our Office login. So let's log in with the Microsoft login here. Let's say signed in. And what we'll get is we'll be sent back to the portal and then log in. And what you'll see straight away, because this particular user has a mailbox, you'll see that my mailbox will show up by default. So let's take a look here. For to load, okay, there we go. So you can see here, I've got my own mailbox. Again, this is pretty straightforward what you'd expect. It kind of just works like it shows on the sticker, right? So I can go in here as a user looking at my mailbox, but say if I wanted to go and actually change the scope, I could now go and get the list of users that I've got administrative access to actually restore for as well. So let's go and click on this particular one here. It's going to give me a bit of a warning to say that I don't have any SharePoint restore points. That's okay. And I can go in, I'm looking at this particular customer now, which is GTWGT, and I'm basically able to now go and actually do restores for this particular user, right? So we effectively can do restores straight away from here, or we can add it to a restore list, which is effectively like a checkout box of the items that you want to actually restore. So that's pretty straightforward in terms of, being able to log in as an operator. The operator has access to their own mailbox if they've got one, or anyone that they've been assigned through the actual portal itself. So
sorry to interrupt you there. So I want to make sure.
That's okay.
So you're saying that access to the other party's mailbox is due to the fact it's been assigned in this product or in 365 or both?
It's a combination. It's this product specifically, right?
Okay.
Because you create the operator role. The operator role then basically looks at what you've configured in Azure AD.
Mm-hmm. So if I already have permissions to mailboxes, the live mailboxes in 365, is there a way for me to import or automate access to the backups for them as well? Or is that something I have to set up separately?
I'd say it's something you have to tie it together through that, because you'd have to tie it through that operator role, right? But obviously, if that's set up already and you're probably tying it up with a group, then when you create that operator role, you're going to be able to get that group there. And obviously, you can do it programmatically, either through the API or through PowerShell as well.
Yeah. Okay, thanks.
Cool. Okay, so the last part, I'm just going to actually log in as that guy.
The VBO V6 beta that you talked about that dropped yesterday, is that public or is that still closed beta?
SC driven.
Okay.
Cool. So now I'm logging in as that particular user, right? This is an individual user coming in themselves to basically self-manage their own restore of an email. So this obviously can be used without the need of an administrator, which is what we're aiming for here, right? So you can see here, I've got that same mailbox structure that we saw. The difference that you see now is I haven't got that operator to change scope, so you know that I'm logged in as an individual user. If I go to my Brave browser, what I'm going to do, you can see this is a live version of the mailbox. I'm sure you guys have seen this type of demo before, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and actually restore all of those. I'm going to add it to a restore list. I'm then going to click on all of that and perform the restore. I'm going to restore it to a new location, which is a new folder. I'll call it CFD12. We'll click on next and next again, and we'll finish that up. And almost pretty much immediately, we should see the CFD12 folder come in there, and the mail that we've wanted look like there's 5 in there. There we go. They're all in there, right? Pretty straightforward. It works as advertised. Again, the users can come and do this by themselves. If you have a look here in terms of the logging, you can see that there should be a bunch of, let's go here, there we go. So you can see that the restore operations are all logged, they're all audited. So we've got a full trail of what happened. In fact, there you can see that I've got an existing session open, which is what's running now for that particular user. And you can see here that I've restored those 5 items. So everything can be logged for administrators to take a look at as well.
Quick question. I see you can restore OneDrive / SharePoint files. How about integration for Teams? Chats, files within Teams, conversations, can that be restored as well?
Not in this particular version. So to start off with V1, we're only going to basically limit it to SharePoint and your Exchange. Then we'll move on to Teams moving forward. They did have that on one of the early sort of alphas, but they obviously dropped it because there was a few issues with it. So hopefully we can get that into the next version.